Oh, hello, boys. How are you? It is me, Frustrated Karen here. I'm going to be complaining about PTR and these rune words. Because I'll be honest, I put out the first video, holding back. I sugarcoated it, because I was hoping and I was expecting more to come out, but it seems to be, this is all we have, is 8 rune words. I'm not satisfied. Talking to friends and you guys on the Discord, we're sharing the same opinions. Checking around, watching other content and other live streams of other creators in the D2 community, I'm seeing similar feedback. So I wanted to get another video out with my full thoughts, and I want to give some feedback, and by the minuscule chance that one of the devs watches this stuff, maybe that can help give some, insight to them. I don't know who watches my stuff anyway, boys, but anyway, I got to get this off my chest. Let's go through the rune words again and not hold back. We have a range of 5 helms, right? So one of these is poison, which I don't have because I put the runes in the wrong order. But for these, we've got, we've got a shale, we've got an IO rune. They're above they're above level 30, so we can't even use these for lower level duels, right? Because 30 is the cap for that. So then above that, what are we really going to be using these instead of? The answer is fuck all. Right? The only ones that kind of stand out roughly from looking at them is we have Fire Is, which we could maybe use against Travancore and things like that. But in all cases, we're not going to be using a cold one. I see absolutely no point in that. Lightning, not really. If we really need niche Lightning Absorb, you've got something like a Blackhorn's Face, which you can chuck on a Mercenary. But nobody uses that. It has no value. The only other one we kind of have, which was interesting, which I stated in my previous video, is Bulwark, because it gives physical damage reduced by up to 10 to 15%, decent chunk of replenished life, and we've got lifesteal from 4 to 6%, if I remember correctly. So, seems okay. You can make it in like a kind of specific class base. You can make it in a helm like this, but in reality, Ariet's Face is going to be significantly better, and if we're going to be using this on a mercenary, it's only going to be very temporary, because we need resistances, we need other stronger stats, and attack speed is quite important on probably the mid to late game for gearing out our mercenary. So even if we do use this as a temporary slot, it's not going to be long at all. So I don't see much point in it. Making it in a more class-specific base, Ariet's is just flat bang way better. It would be a waste of a base making it in here. I would feel more inclined to even make a delirium, to be honest, to be more fun. But I kind of got to move on, right? So the only one I would see being used potentially is maybe for a magic find, gold find barb, or even something specific to give that chunk of fire absorb onto a mercenary if you have issues with surviving. But then again, flickering flame is a much better option if you get the resistances packed up high. Your mercenary is decently strong, you may not need the fire absorb anyway. So, helms, quite underwhelming. Let's move on. Let's go over to hustle, right? Where's the other ones we got here? There we are. So we can make it in any weapon and any armor, yeah? So let's start with the armor, alright? So 50 faster run walk, right? Attack speed, hit recovery, very similar, just kind of adding on top of a twitch throw. If we're looking at the runes, right, Shale, Ko, Eld, it's not too far off something like a Treachery, and that is going to be way better. Now, if we're looking at the faster run walk, that is just your standard flat additional run walk. If we're looking at something like run walk that's given from a skill like Burst of Speed, that it translates straight over to effective faster run walk. So this would have diminishing returns. Now, immediately, who's going to use this? Who's going to use hustle? Attack speed, it might be good for a melee if you're on your way up, but Shale, Ko, Eld, let's be realistic, Ko rune, you could maybe farm that in Nightmare to like maybe mid-Nightmare, early Hell, but at that point, you're going to be prioritizing resistances is a major thing getting into the end game to farm these difficult areas, particularly in Hell. I don't really understand. In terms of movement speed, trying to make it on the theme of hustle, Enigma has 45%. You've even got Trang's Plate, which has more. You've got faster cast rate and some other handy mods on things like Stealth, which is significantly cheaper. I can't see how this would be used in any sense at all. Moving over. Hustle on a weapon. Now, when I first saw this, red flags immediately. Because burst of speed at level 9, it lasts for, I think, just under 4 minutes if I remember correctly, 211 seconds, so it's kind of decent. It gives 44 effective attack speed, so that chucks right on top, so you can replace things like Faith, you can reach higher frames and all of that. And it gives a good chunk of movement speed too. If I remember, it might be something around 51 movement speed. So it's amazing mobility, but the rune word itself is absolute dog water. Look at it. There's no point. If it was on something else, if it was on like a decent weapon, if you made a great rune word first, then chucked on that 5% CTC for burst of speed, then we're talking about developing something for potentially in-game. But with this, it's absolutely garbage, and it's taking up a pre-buff slot for literally everything. I was going through my theory crafting builds and stuff that I wanted to look back on where this burst of speed might fit, and in all honesty, it can fit in pretty much all of my builds, but it adds more clunkiness, more pre-buffing, just so I can reach a higher frame of attack speed. So technically, it's an upgrade for every single fucking build that I have, but I don't want to do that because it is so inconvenient. When I first started getting into theory crafting, one thing I really focused on trying to minimize is pre-buffing, because I know how much that I dislike it, and I feel like it takes away from the gameplay itself, and also feedback that I've got from others. It's not really an enjoyable thing having to restart every run, swap this out, and then, you know, to optimize your max in-game damage. It's okay to some degree, but this is adding an extra piece on that to just make it really taxing to min-max. So it's not changing anything to the build necessarily, right? It's just adding more attack speed, and the rest of the build is the same. I've tested with my brand Boasork today on stream, and it was just exactly the same build. Get rid of CTA or memory staff, whatever it is, chuck this on instead, shoot with a bit of a bow for like a couple of minutes, get it to proc, and then I can shoot a higher frame. That's basically it. Tried it with several other different builds. That's basically it. Take off the CTA instead and just hit a higher frame above. That's really it, and it's really disappointing. You can also get it in the bow just like here, as I mentioned, right? This, I kind of like the idea of the CTC, but the way that it is now, it is just pre-buffing only, which I think is really disappointing to see. You know, I would hope that they'd be looking more towards changing skills and developing, fleshing out the characters, other than adding in an extra stat to kind of try and fill a gap temporarily. You know, that's what it kind of feels like. And on the topic of skills, these two rune words are a bit of a red flag for me. So I'll be honest, I don't play Assassin too much, but looking at this, plus 25% chance for finishing moves to not consume charges. It's a shit rune word in itself. It is weak. Immediately you're going to be comparing the cost of the runes. A Marl and a Gal is extremely high. You've got like a high-end Bartix, you've got rares and Eth rares that can be, uniques like Bartix, you've got strong rares, and also some ethereal rares and even blues in some cases can be significantly more powerful than this. And for assassins, it's one of the most important pieces that you have, right, is your claws. Very important to get as much plus skills as you can. There is not enough on here. And in terms of having like a martial arts build, which is very clunky, has a lot of issues already, this is not the way to go about adjusting issues with the martial arts tree or any skill. Okay? Devs, please take a step back, stop making new items, new things, and new shit. Work with what is already in the base game and adjust that. Such as, like, on the Barbarian, right? Let's have a look at the skills. This is a perfect example, right? They added here, chance to pierce, chance to not consume quantity. Okay? Imagine if they had that on an item. That is exactly what these two items feel like for me. So where they could have, instead of changing the martial arts skills, maybe claw mastery, maybe some of the specific charge skills or consumers, right? They've just slapped a unique modifier on a new item instead. And it is not covering the issue at all. I think they completely missed the mark on this one, and they don't really know what they're doing. Like, look at the skills. I don't understand. It's been months, and I'm a bit dumbfounded. It's the same kind of idea with this one, although this one's quite interesting. It took me off guard. I didn't expect them to take a different sort of approach like this, albeit this is not actually functioning 100% in PTR currently, right? You can't actually have the buff up and then switch out of a form. It's still, the game still reads your character as if you're in the shapeshifting form itself, so you can only use basic attacks. But, you know, with this functioning how it should be, it is more pre-buffing, which is shit, and it's got the same aspect of specific new mods for skills on this item. Werewolf and Werebear grants a buff only on that item. Why are you not updating the skills? I don't understand. What I would like to see for this one is for them to update the skills entirely, rework this, and just make it for Druid pelts only, make some class-specific rune words. So bonus to attack rating, increase maximum life, cool. But then you have to swap in and out of forms, which nobody does in any build. I get how Dabronsky said that that's kind of what part of the intention may have been from the developers, right? Looking at the Werebear mark, attack speed, crushing blow, damage reduction, really cool mods, right? I agree with all the mods and stuff, but the marks that it grants from each and swapping them between is where I don't really understand. I don't really understand. Not a single build does that or has any benefit. They're very different in their play styles of each of the builds. Going for like a Werebear is a bit stronger and slower, and a Werewolf is faster, right? Can attack with more hits in succession, excuse me, like Fury. Makes perfect sense. I'm just going to switch character here so we can have a look at a couple of the skills. So if we go over here, right, we've got things like Werebear. This is the fundamental transform skill. And then we have Werewolf here. This is what they should change directly. Okay? So instead of adding the grants, I would want to see here, Werewolf, give it something else instead of attack rating, attack speed, add something else, like how they did with throwing mastery on the Barbarian. They fixed Pierce, right? And chance to replenish quantity, things like that. Change the Werewolf to make it more unique to benefit across the board. All of these builds, instead of feel like if they want to play one, they're stuck with this certain helm. Same goes with Maul. I remember, not Maul, sorry, with Werebear. I've heard people talk in the past, like maybe something like Crushing Blow, which goes up additionally per level and skill point investment into Werebear. Things like that I want to see more. So without rambling too much, boys, I'm not satisfied with what we have. I'm a little bit lost for words, to be honest, because it's been months. I thought we'd see more. I thought we'd see more thought out rune words that are at least going to address certain places, but to me it looks like they don't understand the issues that are currently set for each class. It looks like they toss these together in a few days. I'm sorry, developers, but it looks like you put these through without not much thought at all, and you're hoping on as much feedback as possible. So hopefully this is helpful for you. But man, I hope we can make some proper changes with these. And what I would love for you guys to do, if the developers are watching, is don't worry about, forget about adding all the new shit, forget about the big stuff and the big changes that people are bigging for, which we know is going to take a while, most notably. We've got, you know, bloody, like, loot filters, sorry, and also stackable runes and gems. Okay, they're a little bit difficult, sure. Stash space, things like that, server space is an issue. Okay, sure, slide that. What can you do that's easier without adding new, like, things in general? Change what's already in the game. We have so much stuff that is outdated, that is old, and it is not being used where it could be. Add skills. Change skills. Keep developing and tweaking the skills according to community feedback, which you have an abundance of. Needs to be more communication between us. I think that would benefit everybody across the board. Secondly, update old rune words and old unique items. There is so much content in this game that is underutilized, unused, pointless, and just taking up room that no one uses. We have old runes like Sur and L makes wind, which you can make in any weapon. Nobody ever uses that, ever, hands down. Just looking on whatever character this is that they made. Like, oh, I suppose there's not much good examples here, to be honest. But, man, there's so much content that you can update that's already in the game. Fix current uniques, fix current set items, set bonuses, fix rune words that are outdated. Little things like that are going to go so far. And fix skills as well. Not going to say fix immediately, but I feel like that is where the focus should be for now, instead of adding on new content. Because I'm just going to call it here, boys. I'm not satisfied, you know? And I feel like, yeah, I feel like there's such positive and good feedback from everybody, and not only this community, but other communities as well. And I feel a bit annoyed that they're not taking into account all of our feedback as a whole, you know, when we see a PTR like this with these little rune words that don't actually make sense or hit the mark at all. But yeah, sorry if this is not your ideal type of video, but I was really just pissed off this morning. Yeah, let's leave it there, boys. Hope you're doing well. I might be streaming later today if I can be bothered, but who knows what is there left to test, to be honest. Love you, boys.